People often think the INFJ impact comes from their words, but what shocks them most is that the effect begins long before an INFJ ever opens their mouth. There's something in the way they enter a room, the way their eyes scan without judging, the way their energy settles into the space like a truth people didn't know they were avoiding. Most can't explain it, but they feel it immediately, a presence that is calm, deep, and quietly disarming. And that moment, before a single word is spoken, tells people more than an entire conversation ever could. What makes this silent influence so powerful? And why do strangers instinctively adjust themselves around an INFJ without understanding why? That's where the real story begins. Before we dive into the 7 things people notice instantly, make sure you subscribe so you never miss a new insight into the INFJ mind. And now, a question for you in the comments. What's the first thing people tend to say about your presence, even before you speak? Drop one word that describes how others perceive your energy. People notice the INFJ's calm but intense presence the moment they walk into a room. It begins as a shift in atmosphere, not dramatic, not loud, but unmistakably felt. Their presence enters before their voice ever does. People look up without knowing why, sensing a calm that doesn't belong to the noise of everyday life. It's intensity without aggression, softness without fragility. The INFJ doesn't try to command attention, yet attention moves toward them naturally, drawn by a magnetic quiet that feels ancient and deliberate. In a world addicted to volume, their stillness becomes the loudest thing in the room. It resets the emotional temperature, makes extroverts pause for a beat, and causes observers to wonder, who is that? And why does the room suddenly feel different? As they move through the space, everything about them communicates a depth that can't be faked. In their posture, their steady breathing, their measured steps. People feel watched, but not judged, seen, but not exposed. The INFJ's calm is not passive, it is perceptive. Their intensity is not force, it is awareness. Even without speaking, they absorb energy, read dynamics, and understand the emotional weather of the environment. Others sense it unconsciously, adjusting their tone, their behavior, even their thoughts, as if some invisible mirror has been lifted in front of them. It's not intimidation, it's revelation. And revelation is something people rarely encounter in silence. Then comes the moment people realize the INFJ hasn't said a single word, yet has already mapped the room. Their quiet pulls forward truths that loud personalities try to hide. Their presence alone sets boundaries without announcing them. People feel compelled to be more honest, more real, more careful in the INFJ's orbit. Not because the INFJ demands it, but because something in their energy refuses anything less. That calm intensity becomes a psychological gravity, one that draws sincerity closer and pushes superficiality away. By the time the INFJ finally speaks, the room has already listened. Their eyes communicate more than words, deep, observant, and quietly penetrating. People feel it before they understand it, the way an INFJ's eyes don't just look at you, they look into you. It's not confrontational and never aggressive, yet it reaches places most conversations never touch. Their gaze carries a depth that suggests they are listening to emotions, not just sounds, studying intentions, not just actions. There is an ancient sort of intelligence behind their eyes, something that notices too much too quickly. People instinctively shift, straighten, or soften under that silent attention, unsure whether they are being understood or exposed. Those eyes feel like they're reading a story you didn't know you were telling. What makes the INFJ's eyes unforgettable is not sharpness, but clarity, a kind of quiet perception that sees through performances, masks, and carefully built defenses. They catch micro-expressions in seconds, and even the smallest change in emotional temperature registers instantly. When they maintain eye contact, it's steady but gentle, present but not invasive. It feels like they're giving you space while simultaneously seeing the truth you're trying to step around. Most people aren't used to being seen with that level of sincerity, and it changes how they respond. Some open up without meaning to. Others become nervous, shifting into small talk to avoid the intensity. But either way, no one forgets it. And when the INFJ looks away, people feel the absence. Their eyes carry so much unspoken understanding that a single glance can shift an entire interaction. It's why manipulators become uneasy around them. The INFJ sees the crack beneath the smile. It's why emotionally open people feel safe. The INFJ recognizes their sincerity immediately. Those eyes communicate everything the INFJ chooses not to say out loud: perception, empathy, boundaries, intuition, and truth. In a world full of noise, the INFJ's gaze is a quiet revelation, one that lingers long after the conversation ends. People sense emotional depth even without knowing anything about them. There's something about an INFJ that people feel before they understand. Even in silence, even before a single word is spoken, others pick up on an emotional gravity that pulls attention without asking for it. It's not sadness, not intensity, not mystery. It's depth. A quiet depth that suggests this person has seen more, felt more, understood more than they say. People sense it in the way the INFJ stands, listens, and exists in a room. Their presence carries layers, like a story written in invisible ink, one that people instinctively try to read. Some feel comforted, drawn in without knowing why. Others feel unsettled, aware that this is someone who can't be fooled by surface-level charm or performance. This emotional depth shows itself not through expression, but through presence. INFJs absorb the atmosphere with a subtlety most never notice, watching how people move, how voices shift, how energy rises and falls. And because they're constantly processing these emotional currents, they radiate a stillness that feels like understanding itself. People speak differently around them, often revealing more than they intended, because the INFJ's depth acts as a mirror that reflects authenticity back. Even strangers sense it, sometimes pausing mid-sentence as if realizing they've stepped into a more honest space than they expected. Without any effort, the INFJ makes the emotional world feel real, visible, and close. What unsettles some, and comforts others, is that this depth doesn't demand attention. It simply exists. It tells people, without words, that this is someone who feels life intensely and processes it even more deeply. Someone who can read the difference between a smile and a mask. Someone who carries emotional history not as weight, but as wisdom. And because of that, people instinctively adjust around them, either opening up or guarding themselves. The INFJ never asks for this reaction. It happens naturally, a silent acknowledgement that emotional depth changes the room before the INFJ ever speaks. Their silence feels intentional, making others more aware of themselves. People don't just notice that an INFJ is quiet, they notice how they are quiet. It's not awkward, not hesitant, not unsure. It's deliberate. Their silence holds space, and that space makes others suddenly aware of their own words, behaviors, and emotions. It feels as if the INFJ's stillness is a mirror, reflecting everything happening in the room with unsettling clarity. When they listen, they don't interrupt, rush, or fill gaps with noise. They let the silence breathe. And in that breathing space, people begin hearing their own thoughts louder than they expected. Some feel exposed. Others feel strangely seen. But no one walks away unchanged. The intentionality of the INFJ's silence shifts the atmosphere, making even the most talkative people slow down and notice themselves more than they intended. What makes their silence powerful is not what it hides, but what it reveals. Without speaking, the INFJ creates a psychological pause, a moment where masks slip and truth rises to the surface. People begin questioning why they said something, why they avoided something, why they suddenly feel the urge to justify themselves. The INFJ doesn't demand honesty. They simply make dishonesty feel uncomfortable. Their silence invites emotional transparency in a way that words cannot. It's the quiet presence of someone who is not trying to impress or dominate, but who is absorbing, understanding, and evaluating on a deeper level. And because of this, people instinctively adjust, softening their tone, choosing their words more carefully, or revealing parts of themselves they rarely share. This is why INFJ silence is often misunderstood as judgment or distance, when in reality it is attention, focus, intent, and attention at that depth is rare. People feel it long before they can explain it. They become aware of their contradictions, their anxieties, their truths, simply because the INFJ gives them space to hear themselves. And in a world full of noise, that kind of silence is disarming. It turns the INFJ into a quiet force that shifts the emotional dynamic without lifting a finger, leaving others wondering why they suddenly feel more transparent than they ever planned to be. People pick up on the INFJ's empathy before any kindness is spoken. Before an INFJ offers a single comforting word or gentle gesture, people feel their empathy in the air around them. It's not something the INFJ performs, it's something they emanate. Their presence softens the emotional temperature of a room, the way warm light changes the tone of a shadowed space. People sense that the INFJ is not evaluating them, not competing with them, not waiting to speak, but actually feeling alongside them. That energetic openness creates a quiet safety that others recognize instantly, even if they don't understand it. A person may sit beside an INFJ and feel emotions they push down suddenly rising to the surface, as if the INFJ's empathy gives them permission to finally breathe. It's a silent signal that says, "You're seen. You're safe. You don't have to pretend." What makes this presence so disarming is that the INFJ does nothing dramatic to create it. They don't force connection, and they never rush emotional intimacy. Instead, they hold space with a kind of attentive stillness that makes others feel acknowledged without explanation. Even strangers instinctively trust them. The cashier who suddenly opens up about their day, the coworker who reveals more than they intended, the friend who cries without meaning to. Empathy radiates from INFJs in the way they observe, in the softness of their expressions, in the grounded calmness of their energy. People feel understood long before the INFJ even says, "I understand." It's an emotional gravity that pulls truth closer, making people's defenses slip without a fight. But that unspoken empathy also exposes others. Those who carry guilt, hidden motives, or unresolved emotions often feel uncomfortable around INFJs for the exact same reason others feel safe. They can sense, without a single word exchanged, that this person will see them, not the version they perform. The INFJ's empathy becomes a silent detector, revealing what people feel, not what they show. And in a world full of masks, being truly felt is both healing and terrifying. That's why people respond so intensely to an INFJ's presence long before any kindness is spoken. Empathy is their first language, and everyone hears it, even in complete silence. Their energy feels grounding, like someone who sees the bigger picture instantly. Before an INFJ even speaks, people sense a stabilizing force around them, an energy that feels anchored, calm, and strangely all-knowing. It's the presence of someone who isn't shaken by noise or distracted by surface impressions, someone who naturally steps back and sees the entire landscape while everyone else is busy staring at the nearest detail. People feel this grounding quality instantly, sometimes without understanding why they suddenly relax, breathe deeper, or slow their pace. It's as if the INFJ is quietly holding the emotional map of the room, and others can feel the reassurance of someone who already understands the path forward. Their presence doesn't demand attention, it centers it. This grounding comes from how INFJs process life, always zooming out, always connecting threads others haven't yet noticed.
While most people react to the moment, the INFJ intuitively senses the pattern behind it. That silent understanding radiates from them in the way they listen, the way they observe without judgment, the way they carry themselves with a calm certainty that says, there is more to this than you think. People often describe feeling settled around an INFJ, even during chaos, because the INFJ isn't swept away by the present moment. Their mind is already 10 steps ahead, already interpreting the emotional currents others struggle to name. It makes people trust them without knowing why. The INFJ simply feels like someone who sees the bigger picture instantly, and that energy communicates safety.
But this grounding presence also affects people who aren't ready to face that bigger picture. Those who rely on confusion, control, or emotional chaos feel strangely exposed in the INFJ's calm field. They sense that the INFJ sees the truth beneath their performance, and that grounded energy becomes something they cannot shake or distract. The INFJ doesn't need to speak, argue, or correct. Their very presence reveals the imbalance in the room. And for those who hide from clarity, being in the orbit of someone who naturally sees the whole picture is unsettling. This is why INFJs stand out without trying. Their energy isn't loud or demanding. It's stabilizing, perceptive, and unmistakably aware. People instinctively trust them or feel exposed long before a conversation begins.
People react to an INFJ before they ever hear a single word, and the reaction is rarely neutral. Some feel an immediate sense of safety, as if they've stepped into the presence of someone who understands without needing explanation. Others feel a sudden discomfort, a quiet fear that this person can see far more than they reveal. It's an intuitive split, almost primal, trust or exposure. This happens because INFJs carry an emotional transparency within themselves that makes others reveal their own truth, even unintentionally. Their presence acts like a mirror, a clear one, and for many, that reflection feels comforting or confronting. And long before any conversation happens, people already feel the weight of being seen. That instinctive reaction comes from how INFJs observe the world. They don't scan for details, they absorb essence. They don't judge, they understand. This creates a paradox. Their gentleness opens people up effortlessly, but their perceptiveness also strips away the masks others rely on. People can sense this even in silence. They feel the INFJ's attention, steady, grounded, quietly profound, and something inside them either relaxes or recoils. The trustworthy feel recognized, as if someone finally sees the parts of them they've been hiding out of fear. But the insincere feel exposed, as if their carefully constructed persona becomes transparent under the INFJ's gaze. It's not intentional, it's simply the natural impact of an intuitive mind that reads more than it hears. And this split reaction, trust or exposure, becomes the INFJ's invisible influence in social spaces. They don't have to speak to shift the emotional tone of a room. Their presence alone alters it. People become more honest, more aware, more careful, or more open without knowing why. Some instinctively move closer, drawn to a feeling of depth and security that's rare. Others keep their distance, sensing that their usual tactics of charm, distraction, or performance won't work here. And so, before the INFJ says anything, the dynamic is already set. They are either the person someone feels safe enough to reveal their soul to, or the one they fear will see straight through it. When you really think about it, the INFJ impact begins long before the first word is spoken, and that's what most people never understand. It's not magic, and it's not mystery. It's emotional intelligence woven so deeply into their presence that people feel something before they can explain it. Some feel safe. Some feel exposed. But everyone feels something. And that silent influence is exactly why INFJs move through the world differently, and why the world reacts to them the way it does. If this video helped you understand yourself or someone you care about, remember, the quietest truths are often the most powerful, and INFJs carry them everywhere they go. But now I want to hear from you. Do people tend to trust you instantly, or do they pull away because they feel seen? Drop one word in the comments: trust or expose. Make sure you subscribe if you want more videos that decode the INFJ mind, Sigma INFJ psychology, and the hidden patterns most people never notice. Because the next video, it will make you see the INFJ presence in a way you've never seen before.